Yo, what's up, guys? It's Nick here, and I got a co-host with me today.
Hey, what's up? It's Rap. How you doing?
So, I talked to Rap, and I wanted to go ahead and just make this video because I feel like recently in our Discord server, and in multiple places as well, there's been many issues with either misconceptions with team building or just bad team building in general. So I figured I'd go ahead and make a video just covering the basics of everything and just, helping out people with increasing their potency of their teams. And we'll also be going over a bit of how to play matches as well so you can, properly apply the teams that you're going to create from this video. So, first, to just start this off, I'd like to talk about some basic ideas and principles of team building. The concept of building a team can be very hard, like for someone who isn't like used to team building. Like if you have no idea where you want to start, then it can be a very challenging task to figure that out. Typically, though, if you have an idea of a mon that you really like or something that you want to build around, that's an amazing place to start. So, like for example, right? Let's say I wanted to build around, I don't know, a very good OU mon, right? Keldeo. Okay. So I have a mon that I want to build around, right? Um, and now what I would want to do, like after I choose a mon that I really like, and it doesn't have to be a good mon, it can be a bad mon, it could be an off meta mon. Um, you want to think about how the rest of your team wants to interact with this mon. Whether that be having mons to cover its weaknesses, specific weaknesses to Pokemon. So, like for example, Keldeo, like a very potent like speed check and revenge killer to it is superior. So I might want to have a mon that deals with superior, either revenge checking or just walling it. Um, so I would go through here and I'd be like, okay, well I need a mon to check superior. Well, what are some mons that do that? You have Amoonguss, a very good check. You could run AV. You can run Black Sludge with Spit FEVs. Even some bold sets check it very well. You can also run Ferrothorn. You can run offensive checks to it. Um, that being, there isn't really that many offensive grass types. I guess if you're running like Sun, you could do like Sun Venusaur. Um, but I mean, at least for OU, there isn't that many amazing ones that are allowed in PPO. But I mean, for this instance here, it'd probably just be Amoonguss, right? Everyone spams Amoonguss. Everyone uses it. You might as well use it. And it always checks serve very well, as long as you keep it healthy. But it does have regen. I mean, so now you're looking at Amoonguss, right? You're like, okay, well, Amoonguss does check Keldeo's weakness to grass types. It also does help with rain. Um, just a little sidetrack here, right? Whenever you're building a team, especially for a tier 2, it's important to think about how your team is going to deal with like certain like meta archetypes. In this instance, like always having a way to beat like rain and sand is a very good idea because they are played a lot. Um, if you really want, you can worry about beating stall, but most people don't really run stall. So in this instance, I'm looking at this team, right, and I'm like, okay, well, psychic types are terrifying, right? Yeah, you have double shared weakness to psychic types. What's your fix for that? Well, you can run a steel type, you can run a dark type, you can run pursuit trapper. Here you could just run Tyranitar, right? If you really wanted to. I mean, that was the focus blast. You also have the option of Heatran. Um, and Heatran here does segue into our next point, but for the PPO players here, there is something that needs to be mentioned. When you want to team build and actually win in clan wars, you have to build teams that actually work and synergize. You can't just build with like whatever you have. You really want to aim for having at least a cohesive team. If you're building with whatever you have, you at least want to have a team that like works with each other, and it's not just six mons that have zero synergies. Um, do you have anything to add on to this, Rap? Anything I missed or might have went over?
No, I think you're great so far, dude.
Sweet man. If you do have anything, just let me know. Uh,
Absolutely.
Want to make sure I hit everything on the nail here. So this team does segue very well into the second part and point that I want to talk about. That being popular cores of teams. Now, if you don't have a mon that you want to build around, right? If you just have zero clue, you're just trying to make like a meta team or something that works, one of the best places that you can start is the three most popular cores of teams. This being FWG, which is Fire, Water, Grass, SFD, which is Steel, Fairy, Dragon, and FDP, which is Fighting, Dark, Psychic. Depending on the archetype that you're playing, you might sorry, I just added Blacephalon for no reason. You might be like specifically looking for one of these types. The reason why I say that is Fire, Water, Grass. Just with the innate nature of like Fire, Water, Grass mons, you're typically going to be building a balanced team. The reason why I say this is because water types, other than a very small few, don't really have too many like super offensive water types. The most you're going to really get is like Keldeo or Azu that I can think off the top of my head that's like super meta in OU at least. Grass types, as talked about previously, like other than Superior, there isn't really that many like amazing offensive checks that's allowed in like PPO. And then fire types do have amazing offensive checks, but like also just like with Fire, Water, Grass in general, with like the good old rock paper scissors interaction that they have, you know, fire beating grass, grass beating water, water beating fire, and each one of these resists their own type, right? You're able to have a really good balance team where three of your mons, which are possibly walls or defensive checks, help each other out. The reason here why we have Amoonguss and Venusaur is because in Gen 6 there was a very popular two-core set where you would run Heatran with Venusaur, and it was called Venutran, and it was really good in Gen 6 meta, which is why I wanted to include it here just to pay homage a little bit. But in PPO, what you're typically going to find more of is you're going to find Amoonguss, Heatran, possibly Slowbro, possibly Rotom Wash, even maybe Suicune on a lot of stall teams or slower teams in general. So yeah, anything you want to add on here, Rap, or what's up?
Yeah. Generally speaking, people are going to run a lot of Keldeo too in that core as well because it's a very oppressive mon, and you know it's really nice to pair with like Heatran and Moongus because things that would typically beat Keldeo, Heatran could check or Moongus could check. So it kind of like again, it's a trifecta, rock paper scissors, exactly what Nick said, which is exactly what he's showing right now on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because I probably would have just forgotten to, you know, say anything about it, and we'd have to backtrack later. But the example that I've been using for showing how the process of building a team slowly is we ended up with a Fire, Water, Grass core here with essentially this core except Keldeo over Slowbro. And I mean, and this is literally just, I mean, for the fact that not only is Keldeo just so oppressive, but it's got an amazing speed tier, has so many unique sets that it can run, to the point where, because Amoonguss and Heatran, like Rap said, just cover its weaknesses so well, you're able to get just a really amazing, like, threat that can just come in for free a lot. So, because the way Tier 1 and Tier 2 works, I also wanted to, for each one of these cores, give an example of a UU team, just because I feel like a lot of people... I've just seen a lot of people struggle with building for UU, because it's just a bit more of an unclear meta since, you know, Showdown... You know, for example, in Showdown, right? In Showdown, when you look at UU, you obviously have UU ban list, but then if you go ahead and just go down, right, you have, for UU, you have mons like Azelf, you have mons like Darmanitan, Conkeldurr, you have mons, which I think Conkeldurr is allowed in UU because mons like Celesteela are, so it's a bit harder to say like which mons will be allowed, but if certain mons were to become unbanned in UU, I feel like the meta could change, but it also just creates a very weird meta in PPO where some mons are just so dominant that you can just use them no matter what, which is why I figured it'd be very good to help like team build a bit. So here's one of my favorite cores in Tier 1 right now. I think it's one of the most strongest and oppressive cores. Chestnut, Empoleon, Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat could be a couple of other mons. You could run Arcanine. You could run Delphox or Typhlosion if you're feeling super spicy. But I personally prefer Rotom Heat just for Levitate. You know, it's Pivot. It's possible Defog if you want to run like Rock's Toxic Empoleon. And overall, it's just amazing hitting like possibilities and just breaking or late game cleaning with Scarf or Specs. I think it's a very versatile mon that's super underrated if you're not using it already. Chestnut is just an amazing mon. Amazing Firewater Grassier. Specifically, Empoleon is super, super good in Tier 1. It's one of the best Spadef walls in the game just for where the meta state's at. It really just... The only mon it can't really handle is Nidoqueen. And it checks Sylveon, which Chestnut greatly enjoys. The only Sylveon set it doesn't check is HP Ground, and if you're running that, then you're amazing, because you know it's Heat. But yeah, you got anything to mention about this rep?
Yeah, I mean, there's other cores too, right? It's not just
Yeah.
Chestnut and Polion, Rotom, Heat. You know,
Yeah.
it could be like, let's say you're super bougie, you could be using like Celebi, Entei, and Polion. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
different opportunities here. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
like three mons that are locked into this. That's why
Yeah.
like these are nature cores.
Oh yeah, for sure. And with nature cores, right? I was talking specifically about the mons. That's just because I feel very, very strongly about this core. I think that you can put almost any 3 other unique types here and these 3 slots, and it can just work amazing. Like, you could just do Sylveon, Mienshao, Crocodile, and then you have just a amazing tier 1 team, right? But overall, like, there's many other cores. Like, I think like Celebi, Entei, and Polion is also really good. It's a really good take on like a more offensive team if you don't want to be using Chestnut Empo, which is notoriously a bit slower because Chestnut you're spiking and Polion your rocks, so you're trying to use hazards as well to help break, but you don't have to, and it just shows how versatile Firewater Grass can be and how it's been present for almost since the start of PvP back in like Gen 1 or Gen 2. So it's just been around for a while. It's the good old reliable, and you'll probably see it in at least 50% of teams. So now moving on to the second core that we have, right? This is going to be Steel Fairy Dragon. Honestly, probably one of the most common and most used cores in the game, just because of how versatile it is and how just like amazing the core works with each other. Here you got the OU example. You got Heatran, which is arguably the king of these, arguably one of the best mons for these 3 core typing matchups that you're going to see. Just because it's amazing stat line, its stats, or not stats, but types, with Flash Fire and Steel Fire, like you just check like so much. But here, you got your Steel, you got your Fairy, you got your Dragon. Dragon resists, your water, your grass. There's a lot of Dragon type mons that either have flying or levitate, so it allows you to have a ground resist as well, depending on the mon. Like you got your Latios, your Dragonite, your Salamence, your Hydreigon, your Latios. Like there's so much, which I think is like it's most Dragon types, right? And then Fairy just absolutely like is completely immune to Dragon type attacks, which your Dragon type will be weak to. Heatran also resists that. On top of that, Heatran being a Steel type and just Steel types in general will go ahead and resist your Ice types that your Dragon's weak to. Your Poison type attacks that Fairies are weak to, your Steel type will just be completely immune to. So it's overall just a core that just like is super strong in the immunities that it has, and it has Steel in it, right? Steel has 9 different resists or immunities. It's just one of the best defensive types in the game. Like overall, these 3 types are probably like 3 of the best in the game overall. Just like with the resistances or like how much they hit neutral, and like their super effectiveness. Is there anything I missed here?
No, I think it's solid.
Beautiful. So there is another team for OU here. For the SFD core. I just wanted to show off that it's not just Heatran, right? It's not just Heatran. It's not just going to be Latios. There are many other Steel Fairy Dragon cores, and this one is found in a lot of HO teams. In like at what? Rap, do you think it's fair to say like 80% of HO teams will have these 3 mons?
Definitely a PPO meta, yeah.
Yeah, like in PPO meta, like these 3 mons are always like probably going to be just paired together. Here you got your Dragonite. It's times 4 weak to ice, right? Well, then you got your Azu that resists ice except freeze dry. Hate that move. And then you got Bisharp that resists ice. Bisharp, what's he weak to? He's weak to fire. He's weak to fighting. He's weak to ground, right? Dragonite resists all of those. You know. Azu again weak to steel. Azu's weak to steel. Weak to poison. Bisharp covers all that, right? So I mean, it just shows like how this core interacts with each other very well, and also how it's very, very versatile, just like fire, water, grass, in the sense that you can probably put this in a lot of archetypes of teams, and it'll just excel. Um, so here, we got the UU example. And UU, I will say, I can't wait until, or I just am hoping that they allow Haxorus. But until that day, you got your good old Sylveon, Empoleon, Flygon. I mean, like, Empoleon is, like, arguably one of the best, like, steel types in Tier 1. In terms of it, like, being meta, I think this is one of the only meta steel types. Other than, like, a bit more, like, less meta, you could run, like, Magneton, you could run Steelix, but they just don't excel as well as Empoleon does. I mean, Sylveon is probably, like, one of the best, like, is probably the best wall breaker in Tier 1. There's not much that walls it. Yeah, you got something to say?
Yeah, it's not just the fact that like since we're just talking about like how good Apollyon is tier one,
Yeah.
most teams that aren't like HO, they run like a bulky water type
Mm-hmm.
because like water type is just a really good type in both
Mm-hmm.
defensively and offensively, and that's something that Apollyon really covers. Being a steel type is almost like a plus in that, and
Yeah.
it makes it fits into more cores like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, bulky water types are amazing. Um, and like Suicune, Empoleon, Slowbro, Rotom Wash, all of these, like, you probably see a lot in UU or OU and PPO, just because of how versatile they are and how, like, tanky they are without, like, even needing resists. Um, Flygon here, I mean, Flygon, once again, a dragon type with Levitate, so it covers the steel weakness to ground. This is kind of like a reoccurring theme with dragon types, is so many of them that you're going to use, you'll find that they have Levitate, or they'll have Levitate or they'll have a flying type, right? And this just makes it to where, okay, now you don't have to slap a flying type in your team, which not only makes your team less weak to rocks, so you don't have to worry about defogging as much, and you can worry about, putting your own hazards, but it also just allows you to just cover two birds with one stone, right? You could just have your dragon type in, you have your ground type resist. And then also, Flygon with this team, typically it's going to either be a cleaner or like a late game cleaner, or speed control with Scarf, or you could run Bend, but I prefer not to. So it just fits well with having a wall breaker like Sylveon. So the last core that we're going to go over is Fighting Dark Psychic. Now typically this core, with the exception of Psychic types, because there are some defensive ones, this core is typically going to be a lot more offensive. Or you're going to see it in a lot more offensive teams. There are exceptions to this. Like, for example, there could be some iterations of, like, Sand Balance, where you'll have Fighting Dark Psychic because Kazam is really good in Sand, and then you'll have, like, your T-Tar, and then you could have, like, a Keldeo or a Conk or something. It wouldn't, it probably wouldn't be the most meta Sand team, but it still could be present. But other than that, like right here, you got your Keldeo, you got your Bisharp, you got Alakazam. Something important to note here, one of the main reasons why Dark types are so good with Psychic types is because Dark types are able to Pursuit, Ghost, and Psychic type mons, which Fighting types and Psychic types do have a problem with, because most Psychic types carry a Ghost type move or Dark type move anyways. So it's kind of the case of, like, Dragons, just a little bit less so, like, without Stab. But in Showdown meta, Bisharp is commonly ran with Pursuit, hence why, like here, we could consider Bisharp as a Pursuiter. This could also be T-Tar. This could be T-Tar. This could be any other Pursuit Trapper. It could be Weavile. Essentially, Dark types just allow, Fighting types and Psychic types to be a lot more safer once, they have that one threat that just, kills them gone. Um, I mean, here as well, Keldeo, or I'm sorry, no, Bisharp, resists bug types that Alakazam's weak to. Keldeo, just resists the, go ahead and just resists the fighting type. Or not fighting, sorry, fire. Sorry, I had to cough. Um, and then overall, you can have your last 3 mons to go ahead and fix up any problems that you have, like if you need a ground immunity and stuff. Did I miss anything here? I feel like I might have.
Not really. I mean, you can run something that's defensively with this.
Yeah.
There's always like Slowbro. Uh,
Yeah.
for example, like you can run like Slowkin, Mienshao, and even like what's a great dark type in tier 1? Man,
Crocodile,
Crocodile.
Umbreon.
Yeah, you could run like a core like that too. It's not just that like it's only that you should use it offensively,
Mm-hmm.
but I will say like it gets the best use out of every nature if you use it offensively. It gives
Yeah.
you a lot more wiggle room for like making a lot of predictions
Yeah.
that you wouldn't be able to with other cores.
I mean, and the main reason why it's also super offensive too is like at the innate typing of fighting types. I don't really think that there's that many defensive fighting types, if any, that are actually like super good or even like good. And most fighting types with having access to moves like close combat and high jump kick typically are just going to be very offensive and very strong. So if it's like a more offensive team, but I mean going back to the idea of like Mienshao, Crook, Slowbro, right? That actually brings us into our UU team because that is the core I chose as a representative of UU fighting Dark Psychic. So I mean, like I said, like when we started talking about FDP, Psychic is like the very like Psychic is like the most general exception to being only offensive because you have mons like Slowbro, right? For dark types, there is also exceptions. The biggest one that I can think of is T-Tar. I mean, T-Tar is like one of the best spit F walls, like one of the best like offensive spit F walls, right? And pursuit trappers. It can switch into so much stuff, pursuit trap it, and still be healthy just because of Sandstream, with like rock type spit F boost. I mean, here also, Mienshao offers that offensive pressure with HJK. You can run your Scarf, you can run your Life Orb Breaker set. Same thing with Crocodile. Like it just offers a lot of versatility. I think. I mean, it's like a more offensive versatility in my opinion with this core. But I still think that there's a lot of wiggle room, and in tier 1, I feel like this core is like there's a lot of this core, right? Anything I missed here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so just to end off like talking about the process of team building, I feel like me and Rap should go ahead and just finish out this team, right? Just to show an example. So Rap, what do you think we're throwing in here? Make this a bit more,
All right, well, we need a
cohesive.
defogger.
I agree.
So he's not even defog. Do you also change this to Gen 7 OU really quickly?
Oh yeah. I thought okay. I think at the beginning I was gonna mention something about putting Gen 7 OU. I just completely forgot. Before I start building a team, by the way, guys, it can help if obviously put Gen 7 OU so you don't have Gen 8 mons like we had earlier. And then also, if you already have an idea for the archetype that you want to build, then you can just like put that here and use that as like a guide. So here, what do you want to just say like we're gonna build a balanced team? I think is what this is looking like.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just like put balanced team example, right? So we do need a defogger here. What can help is you can just search the move defog and then look at the mons who have it like this. So we can go ahead and look through here.
I actually really like Gliscor here.
I was gonna say that I really like Gliscor here because you get the Volt Switch blocker.
Not only that, it's also another earthquake immunity to further boost like E-Tron.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously here, with your Gliscor, you're gonna have Toxic Orb. Something that you're gonna see here, I don't know if while we're here, we might as well just do the moves real quick. This is gonna probably be specs unless we need it to be Scarf, right? We're gonna have Surf because Scald is whatever. We could change it to Scald depending on the rest of our team. Then we're probably gonna have our Secret Sword always. I prefer to do double water move just because I don't like using Focus Blast. but that's up to personal preference, and I like to use Icy Wind.
So one thing I want to say with sets like this, it's all like up to your own personal playstyle, right? I pretty much always prefer Surf over Scald because I value the damage more than the potential burn. But sometimes the potential burn can like it has merit, right? Sometimes it could be better. Sometimes it's one of the only ways that you can win. So it's not like a set in stone thing of like, hey, you shouldn't use this because of this. If like you're running specs like this. I
Yes.
think in more niche sets, there's less room for compromise, though.
I completely agree, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I didn't want to seem like I'm bashing like a certain set, whether due to recent events or not. It's just up to personal preference at that point. I prefer Surf for just more consistent damage, mainly just because I'm super unlucky and I feel like I never get Scald burns. But like if like certain teams that you're facing, like let's say you're facing Stall, right? You might need those Scald burns to be able to break through a certain mon. So for Amoonguss, you're always going to have Regenerator. I think here we're not doing AB because we have Heater and Gliscor. Gliscor could possibly be careful. So
Yeah, I think we should do Sludge, but I think we should also invest a little bit of SPDEF into this
I agree.
because we're looking at this team right now, and opposing
We're
Keldeo is
Yeah, water type
kind of
moves.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So man, if only Amoonguss got knockoff, dude, that'd be nuts.
that
Knockoff
would
with
be
its
crazy.
knockoff with its stubby little arms. Um, last move
Uh,
here. It's either HP Fire or Clear Smog. I kind of like HP Fire better.
yeah. Another alternative that's a little like there's
Foul
two
play.
other alternatives that you could do. You could do foul play, or you can also run double status where you run toxic. Because since it's Mungus is a poison type,
Yeah.
it doesn't miss toxic, and it could take advantage of that.
I think like 78.
Oh god, it's either 68 or 70. I don't remember
I'm pretty
exactly
sure
off the
it's
top of my head.
78 because mine's EV'd 178 defense. So
Okay,
Um,
run that then.
so Heatran's got so many sets. You can be spicy and run Power Herb. You can do Air Balloon. Here, I think we're just gonna do leftovers. Should we do like rocks, like 3 attacks? Should we do Stallbreaker? What you thinking here?
Oh man. How about we just leave this blank right now and we finish the rest of the team and figure it out?
Okay, I think we should do the same with Heatran and Gliscor. Like, I feel like these two are very straightforward, but the rest
Well, I
is.
think no matter what, like Glisor is gonna have Defogger Bruce though, anyways.
That's
I,
true.
I don't think like that's gonna end up being comparable.
I can put that, and it's probably gonna have EQ as well.
Yeah, and then last moves are gonna be like what
Toxic or
like
beef or toxic or
toxic,
knockoffs.
knockoff, U-turn. It could be any of those, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have Toxic as a placeholder right now. I'll also just have
That's
this
fine.
set as a placeholder. It's probably not gonna be the set, but because
That's
Gliscor
fine.
sets are super niche. So here, I'm looking at this team, right, and I'm kind of just thinking like Volcarona could be kind of cool. Actually, no, it's not. It's not because I don't want to do double fire type. Not here.
Yeah, we don't have to. What's actually decent for this team would be a bold, calm mind, Clefable.
I agree. Actually, I think that could be very good. I think Magic Guard, right, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I just don't like CM without I don't like CM without Magic Guard because I feel like you get Toxic Dance over, so you're kind of limited on what you can set up on. Now, do we want to do
Right.
Flamethrower here? Or do we want to do like T Wave?
I think we could leave this open too. I don't think we need to do flamethrower, considering like we have a Glisor and a Heatran.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't think we need to do that.
That's fair. Now here last move, Superior could be interesting. I don't know. Maybe having like
Uh,
speed control could be cool. I think.
we could even do like a Weavile here.
I mean, Keldeo Weavile, baby.
Yeah, they're strong. They're strong.
I mean, it's just two amazing mons, and they work together. I mean, you got Weavile here for Pursuit Trapper too, so it stops like Kazam,
Yeah.
which is kind of scary for this team with Focus Blast and HPIs.
Yeah. Unironically, you know what else is scary for this team?
What's up?
It's fucking Starmie.
Yo, you Starmie's actually terrifying. What? Dude, Life Orb
Dude,
Starmie?
Starmie actually does a lot of work in OU, but like no one runs it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Okay, so now that we have the rest of our team figured out, I feel like this should be Flamethrower.
It could be. Yeah, if you want to make a flamethrower.
I mean,
Uh,
it's either Flamethrower or T-Wave, right? T Wave might actually be a bit better since we don't have a scarf,
Yeah,
right?
I would probably run T Wave because like I don't know, man. You can catch a lot of shit with it.
Well, I mean, yeah, like not only can you like catch a lot of stuff as well as like we technically don't have a scarf right here, so
Yeah. Not only that, like you could like T Wave Lottie too, I guess.
yeah.
Which I mean, most times you're gonna Moonblast it, but there are scenarios where you'd probably T Wave it too.
Okay, so we got to figure out these two sets, right?
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
we
this should
do.
be impish.
I agree. Bisharp's annoying for this team so far,
Do you
and I
know how
think,
much speed you run for Bisharp? Is it 36?
oh man, I'm pretty sure you have to be faster than 240. I'm
240?
90% sure 240 is a speed mark.
244? Seems fine to me.
I don't think we need the extra 4 points. I think you can throw it back into the what's it called?
What's 60?
Well,
60? 60? Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah,
60 and then just do, what, plus 12? What,
yeah,
196? I mean, we don't really need speed up here unless we're trying to check something specific. But Gengar is like whatever, so not really. And I just
yeah.
do
I mean, you
this.
just literally pursuit trap it if it comes out and tries to kill something.
Yeah.
Plus, you're gonna have like a Heatran.
I mean, when you run Heatran as well, if you're running a fire type like this, you want it to be other fire steel types, so obviously earth power. Um,
Right.
we don't have Stealth Rock here, so I think Stealth Rock 3 attacks could be really good.
I agree. We could also run.
Magma
If
Taunt.
we want to. Yeah, we can run this. This works too. It's
Yeah,
like a stall breaker set, and it can get rid of Clefable, which can be annoying for this
Heatran.
team too.
What do you run on this? Is it full HP or I don't know the 7 Heatran to be completely honest.
In PPO meta, I usually just run full Spadef.
Like 252 HP, 252 speed up.
Yeah, because
With
I
like
think
claw.
that yeah, like trying to speed creep things and stuff just isn't necessary. I feel.
Especially on this team, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
beautiful. I
that's a
think
decent team.
yeah,
Like
I mean, like I think this is a team that could definitely get wins. And it's not even it looks a bit bulkier, but like I mean, this Heatran set is stall breaking, right? Gliscor is toxic, plus EQ spam. Clefable CM. So it's deceptively very strong in the like pressure it can put out with like Kelia Weavile too.
absolutely.
Okay. So now that we covered team building and we even showed you like a process of us team building, right? I think it's important that we cover some do not do's is what I like to call them when team building and why you shouldn't. So Rap, you have the list of what I wrote down, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. You want to like go hit off like one like I cover one, you cover one for this, just because it's about even. Or
Yeah, we can do that.
all right, and then yeah, if like one of us wants to say anything else. So the reason why I said that is because I'm very passionate about this topic. I've told a lot of people why this doesn't work, and it just hasn't sticked. So I'm putting it in this video as well. Suicide Lead Excadrill. You got your Rock Tomb, your Stealth Rock, your Rapid Spin, your EQ. It is terrible outside of HO. It is so useless as a mon outside of HO. Like if you want to use a offensive rocker as a lead, Sash Garchomp is just better. Like sure it doesn't have Rapid Spin or Rock Tomb, but it just has a better speed tier. It's actually usable outside of just setting rocks. Like if you're running the typical set that I like to use, Stealth Rock, Swords Dance, Earthquake, Stone Edge, Garchomp with Sash, that's still usable other than just setting rocks and dying, right? Because that's what Suicide Lead Excadrill does. That Excadrill set is useless because its main purpose is to die. So if you're not using HO, to keep that momentum of like keeping up your rocks, then it's just bad. Like if you're using it on balance, right? If you lose momentum for any second, which is possible with balance, then your Excadrill is just useless. You're basically just playing a 5v6 with your Pokemon. Did I miss anything there?
No, not really.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right, so the next bullet point: why using certain HO moms like Superior isn't super good with balance or bulky offense. Now, Superior in particular actually can fill some niches, but we're talking more like Bisharps, like Mons that thrive in HO, but are very mid outside of it. Um, I mean, it's just not great, right? There's certain move sets that are like needed. it's basically like you need to have a very niche set to use those mons in like balance or bulky offense.
Hmm.
It's a very one dimensional set that you have to use. You can't cheese anything out. You just have to use the most standard set.
Okay.
I hope I explained that well.
No, I think you covered everything perfectly, and I think in our bullet point, I guess SERP isn't the best example because there's a lot of sets where it can be actually really good in balance or BO, but just like overall like specific HO mons, like you said, just can't really thrive in a balanced scenario unless like it's like a very certain team. But even then, like I think there's just better mons that do their job, right? Um, so I'm actually going to skip the third point because I feel like you'd be better at explaining it, and I'm going to go right to the fourth. Um, so the reason why two mons with the same type is typically bad, which is the idea for this point, is that they just have extreme like shared weaknesses, and overall like there could just be a better mon that like is doing like the purpose of the second type that you have. So like let's say like for example when we were building this team and I said Heatra and Volcarona. Volcarona wouldn't be terrible, but that's just because of the nature of the mon, right? It's a very good, quiver dance, just win the game, end game sweeper. But what is that? What problems does that bring? Well, one, it brings another EQ problem. I mean, two, it brings a very prominent problem with having two of the same type that takes 25% or more from stealth rocks. Heatran, what does Heatran take 12.5 or 25?
12.
It's 12, okay. Well, Heatran doesn't have this problem, but let's say you had like Volcarona and then like Victini, right? You're taking Volcarona takes 50%, Victini takes 25% from rocks. Certain like problems like that, or like double flying types, stuff like that, just like instantly makes your team a lot worse. Like whenever I see someone running Volcarona, Togekiss, Dragonite, there might only be Volcarona and D-Knight sharing the two flying type weakness, but when you're sharing the same weakness of multiple rocks, it just makes rocks so good against your team. And honestly, it almost makes it unplayable for you to be able to win because half like you're put on a timer to win, but also your mons are just like so weak just due to one move, stealth rocks. I mean, this also goes into like shared weaknesses, right? Like if you have multiple mons of the same type, they're gonna have many shared weaknesses. Like double fire type, just ground types, water types, rock types, stuff like that. If I miss anything, please feel free to add, Rap.
No, you're good.
Sweet, sweet. I just, I'm trying to make sure because I don't
No,
want to
you're
miss
good.
anything.
All right. So why two bulky water types are bad? Now this is very similar to what Nick said. Just general about two type-ins being bad. They share the same weaknesses, and sure, one might be able to cover its other weaknesses because of its dual type-in a little bit, but that doesn't really make it any better. Now two bulky water types in general too is bad because now you're dedicating another slot to a mon with the same weakness, but it's another passive mon to add on to your team. You don't want your team to be too passive unless you're playing like stall, semi-stall, but even then, you want to have great switch-ins to like everything, right? You want to be able to switch one mon out into another and it'll adequately check it. But if you have one mon that beats two of your mons or just one type in that beats two of your mons, then it's a problem. I don't think there's much else that need to be said. I guess a good example of this would be like Slowbro and Alola. Running both of them, that's kind of silly, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Magneton, not even Magnezone, Magneton. We'll
beats
break
that.
that.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, it's a very straightforward concept, but I see a lot of teams where it's like double bulky water types, and it's just like there could just be such a better mon in that second slot. Um, I mean, I feel like there's very niche like situations where it could work, but it's never going to be the best. It's just when I say something could work, that means yeah, you could get away with that, right? But does that mean like it's going to be the best? Does it mean that it's actually going to be like worth striving for that? Probably not. Um, so now we covered this team building. We covered what to do, what not to do. The cores of teams, how to build a team, and we even gave you an example, right? now we got to talk about how to play our matches, because at the end of the day, if you can have the best team like ever, right? You could even have a team with like mons that aren't even in the gen that are just super broken. But if you don't know how to play your matches right, you're just not going to be able to win. Teams can't carry everything, and there's a lot of people who don't realize that. So, first important thing when you're playing a match, right? I tell this to anyone that I try to help. You gotta know how to win the game. I think I think it's a very fair comparison to compare Pokemon to chess or another strategic game, in the sense that you're not playing like just off of like each individual turn. It's an entire almost like flow chart, right? One turn affects another turn until eventually you win or lose. So it's important to kind of think about how these turns affect your end game, how they affect the turns that you're going to make in the future, and how you can just set up a situation where you can win. So recognizing your win con is going to be specifically, just okay, what mon beats this team? What mon beats this team with help? Or just how do I have to play this match to win? And this is definitely prevalent with certain archetypes that we're going to cover in the future. Would you like to cover the lose con situation?
Yeah, I mean, understanding like how you lose, what mons give you trouble, and position around them is super important. If you know that Keldeo, like the other player could make a great play of doubling into Keldeo when your team is super weak to Keldeo, you need to, position yourself in accordance to that. So let's say you have a Staraptor and there's a Keldeo. You expect the Keldeo double, switch your Staraptor in. Um, and that's just one example. Obviously, like there's situations where that's not the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, that's also like on your team and the matchup and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
The important part is identifying the conditions in which you can lose and avoiding those conditions.
Yep.
Actively avoiding those conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I think one of the best ways to, win is just knowing how you lose. Because if you know how you lose, then you can easily avoid that. Um, and that honestly just leads into how you should honestly just play in a certain state of the game, right? Now, this can be a bit dependent on the archetype that you're playing, which we'll cover in a bit. But typically, if you're ahead, which it like let's be honest, to identify if you're ahead, it's either if like let's say you're up a sack, if your team just innately like the core of your team or just your team in general is like counter teaming them, then I would say that you're ahead from the start, right? So when you're ahead, I feel like the most common thing that you want to do is you just don't want to predict. Unless like you are forced to predict when you're ahead, don't predict. Because the save that like if you're just innately ahead, you have nothing to lose, right? You can play as safe as possible and just like click what's in front of you, and you won't have to predict until you're behind, right? And when you're so the thing is when you're behind, let's say you choked, let's say you're counter teamed, you're gonna have to do something to like gain an aggressive position or just gain a more favorable position in the match, right? So if you let's say you're playing HO and you're versing Rain, all right, you're gonna have to predict like what they're gonna do and possibly make a double or try to just set up like some way to win off of just gaining momentum and trying to like force them into worse plays by doubling or by doing certain moves by winning 50-50s. And when you're behind, you just have to play more desperate. You have to play like you're gonna have to just force 50-50s because you don't win innately, right? Did I miss anything there?
No, I think you said it well.
Beautiful. Um, I kind of covered being counter teamed a bit. When you build a team, you could try to make as white bread of a team. You could try to make a team that tries to be able to beat everything, but you're never going to be able to beat everything. There's too many usable mons to where you're going to be able to look at a team like, for example, the team we built like just now. This team just gets absolutely kind of well, I guess like without Weavile, these 5 mons just kind of just get destroyed by like Life Orb Starmie, right? It's kind of just a kind of a sweep. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
I mean, and even with Weavile, Like there's like it you know so I mean actually that's just a good example of like let's say you're counter teamed, you're facing Life Orb Weavile or you're facing Life Orb Starmie, right? The way that you predict to win this, or to not just lose to Weavile, not Weavile, Starmie, is you got to double into Weavile. Let's say on a Psychic, or you think that they're going to switch into Starmie, so you double into Weavile and then you pursue, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You don't lose to Weavile or you don't lose to Starmie because it's dead. You know, situations
Yeah.
like that where you can just gain positions and gain advantages off of predicting.
And to be clear too, like it's not just double, and sometimes you could sack them on,
Mm-hmm.
and then like Sakamon you don't need to like win the game
Yeah.
is what I mean. And then you can go into whatever your counter in this term because Weavile counters Starmie
Mm-hmm.
or your check. It's better to have like a counter for things that beat you though.
Yeah. And I mean, just going back to like team building real quick. This is just like a little backtrack, just to like put this in here because I don't think we talked about it too much. Whenever you're building teams, it's important not to just look at like the types that's weak to, but specific mons. Like for example, I would say that this team, it's kind of like Kyurem's kind of scary. There's definitely checks to it, but like Scarf Kyurem, Ice Beam can be very threatening. Um, so like certain mons like that, like if you're trying to like figure out a way to deal with them, like for example, like Calm Mind Clefable can deal with Kyurem, right? Like if you have one CM up, you're pretty much fine. Or if it's Scarf, you can T-Wave. So making sure that if your team is very threatened by a certain mon, specifically building a mon to counter that, or just counter like a slew of mons that all like do the same thing, definitely helps. So just think of like the super like used mons in that specific tier, and then make sure your team doesn't just insta lose to them. Um, so now the final, most important, not most important, but very important point to cover is archetypes. For archetypes, it's just going to essentially be the main playstyle of your team, and why, depending on the playstyle, you have to, obviously switch the way you play. So the main six archetypes that I would say that there are is weather, that being rain, sand, sun, hail, but hail is hail. You got your bulky offense, you got your balance, you got your hazard stack, you got your stall. There is semi-stall. There is a little bit of mix and matches in there, but these are like the main six, right? I feel like that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that weather. Sometimes weather is it's not strictly like quote unquote weather. You can have weather balance, like sand
Mm-hmm.
balance, rain balance, things that let's say you were gonna run like choice scarf or choice specs Pelipper,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to put Kindra on it because it's a potential win con.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a lot of things that you can use.
yeah, and I mean, oh, man. Um, I just think I was gonna try to pull up an example, but I also don't want to go leaking every single team
You're good.
that I have. So I think I'm just gonna try to like give a verbal example and hope that works. So like the first one, obviously weather. Weather it's very, I would say, open, because open in terms of like different archetypes, like you just said. Like I feel like I mean specifically though, like certain weather types I feel are a bit more defensive or offensive, just because like the way the weather works or the way the mons interact. For example, I think like sand, typically you're gonna see like a lot more like sand balance or even like borderline sand semi-stall, just because of how well Tyranitar checks psychic types and stuff. And then you got your Excadrill, which is an amazing late game cleaner, which benefits a lot off of having rocks and sand chip. And then Clefable works so well because of Magic Guard, and then Amoonguss covers all the weaknesses. So it's just like these specific mons that just happen to work all well together. That sand balance just like thrives in PPO meta, right? But then you got your Rain, which is typically a lot more offensive. You're looking for your late game cleaners with Kingdra. You're using wall breakers like Crawdon or Manaphy. You can even be using Seismitoad, and then you always have your Ferrothorn. You could have Impish Garchomp. So I mean, it's very fluid, but overall there is a key way that most people play Rain, and or not Rain, but just weather, right? And with weather, like you always want to keep your setter alive until you don't need the speed anymore. because the speed is what makes it so good. So if you lose your setter, then you lose a lot of your speed control in rain or in weather teams. And then you just want to play for your endgame sweeper. Most of the time, this is going to be your weather abuser, but sometimes it just depends on the game. So it's just important to apply that knowledge of recognizing your win con. Did I miss anything with weather?
No, I think they covered everything.
Sweet. So I will say I'm a bit less familiar with bulky offense, but I have been practicing it a lot for this Rather tournament. So in my opinion, I think bulky offense thrives in having an offensive team with bulk. You get that offensive pressure that you have while still having mons that can either take hits, or just be like a lot more bulky. Like Conkelder, for example, or like Impish Addy Scissor, or not Impish Addy Scissor, but you like Addy Scissor with like defense HP invested. With bulky offense, there's not going to be one clear cut mon that's just going to win the game. You're going to have to identify which mon like actually is good against their team, and then use the rest of your mons to either take out mons that check your win con, or to chip the mons that check your win con to where it can either sweep or put you in a very favorable position where you just win from there, right? Bulky offense in certain cases can appreciate like stealth rocks, but it's not a very like necessary thing. It's very situational. I would say like in any case, right? Stealth rocks is always going to be amazing if they have 3 flying types or they have Volker on a flying type. It's kind of just straightforward there.
Yeah.
I feel like what's up?
Okay, I just wanted to add on to their bulky offense. It's a very offensive playstyle, but you're just using mods that are bulkier. So, like Nick said, a great example already is Conkelder and Scizor. These are mods that either have immediate power or, you're going to Swords Dance up. Not many mons can really nasty plot very well in PPO, but you might use like Calm Mind. They're just mons that can set up with a +1 and do damage.
Yeah.
That's generally speaking what you're doing. Or mods that have that immediate power. So it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty much like you're using 3 to 4 wall breakers
Mm-hmm.
on a bulky offense team.
I mean, yeah, and like Nasty Plot and like Gen 7 specifically at PPO, there's that many good examples. But like, you go to Gen 8 and then you get one of the like of the coolest like bulky offense Nasty Plotters. Hydreigon Nasty Plot is just so cool. So I mean, honestly, something to like just wait for. But yeah. If you want rap, I feel like it'd be better if you just explain balanced. I feel like you understand it a lot better. It's not that I don't understand it, but I feel like you got a lot more of the important info.
Yeah, I got you. Balance is usually like it's kind of like a mixture of everything. That's why it's called balanced, right? It's supposed to be more of a forgiven play style where you can thrive off of your nature synergies, and that's kind of like the gist of it. Typically, you're going to see 1 to 2 wall breakers. You might see like a Specs and a Bandmon with some sort of late game sweeper.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be like Specs Keldeo. Um, God, let's just say like
Weavile.
Guts Condelder or Weavile, right? That's a great example. And then we could even say just like Volcarona, for instance.
Band Scissor. There's so many options.
Exactly. Exactly. So like it's just your pairing wall breakers with your own walls so that you can try to position properly
Mm.
and clean with your late game cleaner.
Yeah, and
Sometimes you clean with a wall too, but
yeah,
that's situational again.
yeah. I mean, and also like, with late game cleaner, it doesn't just have to be like prio. It can be something like Scarf with speed control, or just naturally super fast. You got like, you got your Gengar. Alakazam's an amazing option of a late game cleaner. I feel like Alakazam is actually just such a threat to a lot of teams that people don't think about. So yeah, just a good example of how even just speed control late game can just be so threatening depending on the state of the game. For balance though, I do feel like depending on the type of team, sustain is amazing. Like Regen Amoonguss is one of the main reasons why it's so good, right? You also got your Wish Pass Clef, even Soft Boil Clef, it's just really good because it just allows you to consistently, check the mons that you have as long as you're able to get your sustain off. Hence why regen mons are so broken because you don't actually even have to press a move. You can just switch out. Which is why Amoonguss is just so just sodomized right into PPL meta. Um, so moving on to in my wait, did you have anything to say? I didn't want to cut you off or nothing.
Uh, I just want to say, like, your late game cleaner,
Mm-hmm.
it might not necessarily even be like a scarf mod or like one of your offensive mods. It might be one of your walls, right? That's
Yeah.
the flexibility with balance.
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
you're gonna finish the game with your wall. Sometimes like having that flex is super good because like your defensive core might just beat the enemy team.
Yeah, which man, there's been so many cases where that's happened to me. So okay, so moving on to the next archetype, in my opinion, one of the best ways to beat stall consistently. Now that might be a bit brazy to say, but I think you'll agree with me on this one. I think Hazard Stack is amazing against stall, depending on if you set up the opportunities for it. The main reason why I say this is because Hazard Stack offers the utility of being able to just consistently drag these switches that they want to consistently be doing with stall, just drag them across hazards until eventually you're able to just sweep their team with like maybe superior, Conkelder, Weavile, certain things where once there's enough chip they can just two hit everything, right? With Hazard Stack, normally your goal is to always stack hazards and then chip with like whatever you need for your win con, which is what like the examples I just gave. Um, in Hazard Stack, you typically don't run defog. This is just because you defog your own hazards away. So typical hazard removal is going to be rapid spin. I think an amazing example of this that isn't used a lot is Careful Excadrill with you got your rapid spin, Stealth Rock, Toxic EQ. It checks like psychic types really well, and it just is an amazing rapid spinner that in OU I feel like is one of the best you can get. You can get into your Starmie, and a couple. Excuse me. You can get into a couple of other mons as well, but like the utility rapid spin just offers you of not getting rid of your own hazards, but getting rid of theirs. Just allows you to even just beat stall, right? Because you can get rid of their hazards that they try to like restack onto you. So uh, I mean, also with Hazard Stack too, I feel like mons that abuse defog, like just abuse them using defog might actually be amazing too. Like I feel like Bisharp on Hazard Stack is pretty good, just because there's always the risk of if they defog and you're in Bisharp, you might just be able to clean the game without chip there, right? Is there anything I missed here?
I will say that like he kind of said this, but I'm just gonna rephrase it and make it a little more situational. Sometimes there's one particular wall that's stopping like one of your mons from sweeping
Mm-hmm.
or ending the game faster. So sometimes you're just gonna try to get like stealth rock and a spike down, and then go into one of your wall breakers and try to kill or damage that to the point where your mon that can sweep could just do it, right? Um, Oh man, there was one other thing I was gonna say, but I actually forgot it. Wow.
I mean, I'll try to give you a little bit of time to think about that because I just wanted to make a good old analogy real quick. The statement like, lose the battle, win the war is kind of like the example with a lot of these like win cons and end games, right? Because it's like it might seem like if you look at it like turn by turn, it's like he lost his Conkelder to get chip on this wall, right? But then a couple turns later, the situation just set up where you just have your late game cleaner just sweep their entire team, or you have a certain mon that just sweeps their entire team, right? So it's kind of just that mentality of like, don't be afraid to sacrifice a mon or even a couple of mons to put yourself in a position where you can just win, right? Because without that, you might just not be able to win at all. So it's important to just identify like how to play your end game and just making sure that you properly set up turns for that. I will say with Hazard Stack as
Absolutely.
well, like Hazard Stack can also benefit from like Toxic or Sand. I mean, like in a lot of sand balance, right? Some people run Skarmory, then you have your spikes, and then you have your rocks. I think that's Hazard Stack. Like Hazard Stack can be very, Hazard Stack can just be Stealth Rock spikes, right? But if you're trying to make an actual designated team for Hazard Stack, I don't think it's like as fluid. Um, now we
Well,
get
I mean,
what's up?
hold on. I
Yeah.
remember what I was gonna say, but
Okay.
there was two things I actually said.
Okay.
So hazard stacking isn't always like stall or like a passive play style. Sometimes the best way to play hazard stacking is very offensively because most mons that are going to defog, especially in PPL meta, are defensive. They're
Mm-hmm.
passive mons, and
Yep.
if you get these if you use like let's say Nidokin for example,
Mm-hmm.
most passive mons don't want to deal with that. That can defog. So you're stacking your hazards, but you're providing that like offensive threat, the possibility that if they were to go for defog, it would be a mistake, it'd be a misplay, and you're trying to like build momentum with that.
Yeah.
So an offensive playstyle is just as viable as a defensive playstyle with hazard stacking.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think like there's certain mons that even just abuse that amazingly, right? I mean, Nidoking on the special side in OU, he's so strong with Life Orb, Sheer Force, and then you also have like Conkeldurr. You got your Weavile, you got your Keldeo. All of these mons can just like abuse like defog, and it's like if you're playing hazard stack, right, and they sack their defogger to defog once, well, guess what? Depending on the type of team that you're using, just put them back up. And now they can't get rid of it, and then their team just gets dragged across, a disgusting amount of shit. And it's like as well, having these offensive threats, like when you're hazard stacking, it allows like if you think that they're just gonna go into a mon to try to defog, you can just double, and if you get that double, then you get such a like amazing position that now they don't get to defog and they're taking a hit, right? So it just puts you in such a good position.
The last thing I wanted to say was,
Mm-hmm.
if you're using a hazard stack team, sometimes you pretty much always never want to use a mon that's weak to stealth rocks.
I
So
agree.
most of your fire types you're just not going to use, right? Because
Yeah.
if the opposing team gets up rocks, but you need rocks and stealth rock to beat their team, you can't really always afford to rapid spin it because that's a turn where you can lose momentum and you can lose the game.
Yeah.
So avoiding situations where that happens by just outright not using some of the mons that are weak to hazards, it's just better.
Yeah, I mean, and not to make this too long on this, one archetype, but like, I mean, I can just keep going back to sand balance, right? I mean, like, think about sand balance. Like, most of the mons just aren't weak to stealth rocks at all. It's like 12.5% at most. And when you're hazard stacking and that's your goal, that's like whatever, right?
Yeah.
All right, so now we get to segue into my favorite playstyle, but probably like one of the hardest playstyles to play, especially in PPO, hyper offense, otherwise known as HO. So if you don't mind, Rap, I would like to take this one.
Yeah, absolutely, go
All
for it.
right, beautiful. So with hyper offense, like the main playstyle is innately most of the time, especially if you're playing against like a balanced team or a very bulky team, most of the time you're just going to be like you're going to start out behind, right? I feel like that's very fair to say. Do you? At least like in
uh
terms of like, you know.
I think it depends like on the first couple of turns, right? Like hyper
That's
offense you
fair.
usually have like momentum through,
Suicide leads, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so, but I mean, even like so, let's say that the first few turns go amazing. Now you're ahead, which doesn't mean that like you still don't have to predict it all because hyper offense, you're most likely not having a single wall. You're just gonna have like good mons, like good type coverage. Across your entire team to where you can take like a hit, right? You can take a hit with a mon, you can soft check a mon, but that doesn't mean that you can't predict, because if you don't predict with HO, most of the time you're going to lose if you're facing like a more bulky team. It's just that's how it is. But when you are able to get your predictions with HO accordingly, it can be very oppressive and a very fast way to just end the game. With HO, it's very important that you recognize your win con, because you're basically going to have 5 mons that any of them could easily be a win con, right? So you have to know which mon is a win con and then which mons allow you to set up that proper endgame, because without setting up a proper endgame, most of the time you are not going to win with HO. It's just a very hard playstyle. I mean, but the biggest reward of it is how fast it is, right? With hyper offense, you're either winning or losing super quick. So if it's Clamorse, just amazingly. HO tries to just have an amazing start with suicide leads. So it sacrifices a lot of the times it sacrifices having a sixth mon in many cases just to have the pressure of having stealth rocks up or denying their stealth rocks. So like let's say you're running like Volcarona HO, sometimes you might value not letting them get stealth rocks over you having it. And then because of how fast HO is, with your predicts and stuff, you're keeping up momentum so they can't defog, which is ideal. which is just, using your aggressive team comp to just try to, not ever allow them to get free defog. But that does require making good predictions, right? Anything I missed here?
No, I think you covered it well.
Beautiful. So the last archetype, I guess you could say, it is an archetype, but it's also like just like a certain like mon that's doing it is screens. I feel like there's always going to be like two main screen setters that's always going to be used. In OU it's probably going to be Klefki. In UU it's probably going to be Meowstick. There's some niches like Latias screens and stuff, but overall those are the two. Just because Prankster. Do you want to do this one? Or you want me to?
Maybe we could both talk about it.
Yeah,
I'll start if you want.
Okay, that works.
All right, so screens typically you're using mons that can't thrive in a normal HO setting that need the additional support to actually do something, right?
Yeah.
Now this might be like very strong but slow mons. Let's say we're talking about Rhyperior behind screens. If it were to take like an earthquake or something like that, first of all, it shrugs it off normally, but behind screens it takes even less. You have like a weakness policy, rock polish set. Well, all of a sudden, that mon that was kind of lackluster became a massive threat.
Mm-hmm.
And other examples. I'm pretty sure that if you invest properly, EV properly, from like it takes a scald from Keldeo with light screen up, and you can rock polish up and get your weakness policy. There's a lot of sets that are definitely more niche, but screens make it creates that niche for them. They're able to thrive in those scenarios.
Yeah, and I mean with screens as well, right? It's like I feel like the mons that thrive the most are the mons that need the extra support, because with that extra support they just become absolute monsters, right? I mean, like, look at Manaphy. Manaphy behind screens, while it doesn't need the support, just becomes an absolute demon. Like, it takes so much with its just 100 like across the board stat line. And it still has a really good speed tier. But I mean, like, it's not just mons that like need the support. It can also be mons that are ran in HO. I mean, I think like because with the way defog works with screens, right? Defog takes away your screens. So having a mon that can abuse that defog, it helps a lot and keeps up pressure and might even be able to deny their screens if they don't want to give that. So like for example, Bisharp. I think Bisharp behind screens is really good. I don't like. I think Serp behind screens is good, but I don't think it's good for the reason of being a defog abuser. Because while it can be a really good defog abuser, the evasion is kind of just like it's very RNG, right? Like it can win you games, just off of like sub missing, but I feel like it's also like not reliable to fish for. So I don't think it's a good statement to put as for why it's good behind screens. It's just good behind screens because amazing speed tier and screens allows it to take hits and just sweep with Leaf Storm. The most important thing to note with screens, though, is no matter what type of screens team you bring, whether it's all setup mons plus a screen setter, or it's like setup mon, or it's like a couple setup mons with like two really strong breakers to help them, there's some games where you can just set up screens and win games, but sometimes you can't just like insta win with just setting up screens. You want to try to make a favorable scenario for the screen mon or for the win con that you have to be able to win behind screens. Now, doing this requires two things. One, it requires you to understand what screens that you need, because sometimes you might not need dual screens, so you're just wasting a turn, right? And wasting a turn of the most important screen that you need just isn't like viable, because you could just be switching into that mon or using an offensive like double or something. Also, if you're trying to create a favorable scenario for a mon to sweep behind screens, do not get rid of your screen setter while you're doing that. Make sure you keep it alive. I mean, you can't sweep with it behind screens if you don't have a screen setter,
Yeah, it means turn one, don't set up both your screens and then immediately lose your clef key.
Yeah, exactly.
That wouldn't be smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think that concept, like whenever you have like a core or just an archetype that relies on a certain mon, like weather or screens, don't sack it like turn 2 and then just like be put on a timer of losing. It's just not worth it. Like, for example, like let's say like HP Electric Keldeo lead against Pelipper. Don't risk it. Scout it. You might as well. Don't lose your Pelipper turn 1 in rain and then just lose because they just stall out your rain turns. But, I mean, other than that, I think in terms of just, going over basics and just a little bit in depth, I think we hit every point that I think is necessary for team building and just how to, the basic concepts of how to play a team. I think in the future, if this helps people out, Rap already said that he would be doing some reviews of rather tournament videos, and even possibly if anyone sends in recordings, we could review those as well, and if they are like a good example. But other than that, I think that wraps up everything I wanted to talk about. If you wanted to add anything else, Rap, please feel free to do so. And any closing statements or anything like that.
I think the last thing really that's important to say is when you're team building and when you're actually just playing the game too, you need to understand the meta. You know, the best way to understand the meta is to just play the meta and to experiment with things. You know, you can't improve if you don't play. So team building is very crucial in becoming a better player all in all, but if you don't really understand the meta, you can't really team build effectively either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like playing the game too. You need to kind of look at a lot of different people's perspectives too,
Yeah.
and see where there's merit for things. But
Yeah, and I think. So I didn't know if you need to say anything
no,
else,
you're good. You're out. Some
but
pretty much done there.
okay, cool. Just one little quick thing I wanted to add off on the end here before we leave. I think that if you do take what we tried to convey today and apply it and try to build your own teams and then use those teams, I think that you're going to find a very big improvement in your playstyle, because when you build a team yourself, you understand the idea and concept behind each team, and you know why you put each mon, right? You know the thought process that you went through to put each mon. So now you have I feel like you'll get a deeper understanding of the team, which will allow you to play better with it, right? I feel like having someone just build teams for you, they can try to explain as much as they can, but it's just a more hands-on and personal experience when you build a team yourself. And I think it'll be really beneficial, and I really do hope that you guys try to take anything that you might have learned here that you didn't know, or just something that reassured or redefined concepts that you forgot, and I hope that it helps. Um, if you don't got nothing else, Rap, I feel like we can just end it off there.
Yeah, no, I think we're done, man.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. I really do hope this helps, and I might be seeing you next time.